Discrimination to offer an older person a seat. And apparently Afghanistan is the new land of the free. And this is your Saturday Night Showdown. Discussing all tonight's topics, my brilliant panel joining me tonight are Susie Kennedy, Chloe Dobbs and Andrew Eborn. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Good evening to you. It's 8 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Rishi Sunak says his heart goes out to all those affected by a knife attack at a shopping mall in Sydney that killed 6 people. The assailant injured a number of others, including a 9-month-old baby, before being challenged by a member of the public. The attack ended when a female officer confronted the man and shot him dead. The baby remains in critical condition. The child's mother was amongst those killed. Police say they don't believe the motive was terror-related, and the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has praised the policewoman's bravery.
Today, Bondi Junction was the scene of shocking violence, but it was also witness to the humanity and the heroism of our fellow Australians. Our brave police, our first responders, and of course everyday people who could never have imagined that they would face such a moment. And some of the footage is quite extraordinary.
9 people have been arrested on suspicion of committing public order offences during demonstrations in central London earlier. Tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered in Westminster. They were calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and urging the government to stop selling arms to Israel. A counter-demonstration against what organisers are calling anti-Israel hate also took place in the area. The suspects remain in police custody. Iranian special forces have seized a container ship and 25 crew members off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. The vessel, which has links to Israel, was passing through the Strait of Hormuz. It's now been taken to Iranian waters as fears of an escalation in the region grow. Iran has vowed to retaliate for an airstrike on its consulate in Syria almost 2 weeks ago, which killed a number of senior officers. Israel has placed its armed forces on full alert and has cancelled school trips in readiness for a possible attack. A man who died following a stabbing in Croydon yesterday has been named as 22-year-old Ricard Salou Siafa. Met police officers responded to the scene at Fellmonger's Yard at 6 o'clock last night. Despite efforts from members of the public and emergency services, he died at the scene. A 20-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder and he remains in custody. I Am Maximus romped home to win the Grand National at Aintree earlier. The 7-1 joint favourite finished 7.5 lengths clear to give jockey Paul Townsend his first national win and trainer Willie Mullins his second. The changes to safety rules this year reduced the number of runners from 40 to 32, and 21 of those finished the race, the most since 1992, with all horses returning safely. That's it for the moment, but you can get more on all of our stories by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, it's back to Leo.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Showdown, and what a week it's been. Angela Rayner is being investigated by Manchester police over her house sale. Was it her primary residence or not? I guess it's hard to keep tabs on your multiple properties when you're a champagne socialist. She says she'll step down if she's found to have committed a crime. I mean, surely she knows if she did it or not. Why keep us waiting, Angela? Just tell us. Still, I'm sure Andy Burnham, who's responsible for policing in Manchester, will make sure the investigation is full and thorough. Here he is, having some drinks with the person who's being investigated. In other news, Marks & Spencer's revealed that it's investing £1 million in tackling methane from farting cows. I know that £1 million sounds like a lot of money, but for Marks & Spencer's, that's just 5 items from their food haul. A post office boss was criticised for comments he'd made, but maybe something was lost in the delivery. Does that get your stamp of approval, Andrew? So Alan Bates says he might take the battle to a courtroom showdown. It's surely got to be called the Thriller in Manila. Envelopes. I'm very sorry for these. The Royal Navy says that recruits will no longer have to be able to swim. It's a bit worrying. If Russia invades, they won't need to shoot us. They can just shove us over the side of the boat. But on the plus side, I guess our Navy will work extra hard to make sure that the ship doesn't sink. Scotland's Hate Crime Act came under fire this week as well. I mean, Scotland is a country built on being abusive and insulting as a form of affection. This law is like criminalising passive-aggressive politeness in England. 8,000 people filed complaints under the Hate Crime Act in the first week, mainly against its creator, Scottish leader Humza Yousaf. He protested that there's a high bar for convictions under this law. I mean, for a start, you have to be one of his enemies. Apparently, a reasonable person would have to find you to be abusive or insulting. But where are you going to find a reasonable person in Scotland in 2024? I'm joined tonight by Chloe Dobbs, Susie Kennedy and Andrew Eborn. Now, Andrew, I've got to ask you, what have you made of the ongoing post office scandal?
Well, I think it's extraordinary. We've got these dodgy stamps as well going on now, which are all flooded in from China just to make it a bit more tempting for the post office. It's all coming out, isn't it? And they're sort of apologising that they sort of were rejoicing at the fact people got convicted. But I think it's taken too long, hasn't it? And it took an ITV drama just to get it back on the radar of people, which is crazy.
Yeah, so for years, people have known that, you know, this scandal was going to break, this scandal was ongoing, but it didn't really burst into the public consciousness until somebody made a drama series about it. I mean, is this what we're going to have to do for all miscarriages of justice now, Chloe?
Yeah, well, I mean, we also had the debanking scandal, and it took someone high profile like Nigel Farage to be debanked for it to actually enter the limelight. But, you know, plenty of people were having issues with this beforehand. You've now got with the post office scandal, you've got people having to fight tooth and nail to get a few quid off the government for having their lives completely ruined. Just give them the money, make Fujitsu pay for it, and get this sorted with now.
I have also bought all the TV rights to all scandals in history, and that's why I was down in Cannes.
Who's going to play Nigel Farage?
Well, I think Nigel himself, now that we've seen a lot of him in The Jungle, I'm sure he'd love to play himself. I think there's a few people who do it really well. I think Martin Sheen plays everybody brilliantly, so I would definitely get him lined up. But I was down in Cannes, as you know, looking at TV festivals, and formats about scandals are really hot at the moment.
Well, of course, they just had a big successful one.
Phenomenal for ITV. But it's outrageous that it took a scandal on ITV to expose the whole thing on that sort of basis. Same with the blood scandal. You know, the tainted blood. How long did that take to sort out? And they're still working on that basis. So the more we can shine a spotlight in the media on the stuff, the better.
Yeah, Susie, what do you make of this? I mean, I feel like that, you know, this guy who made these comments, they're sort of trying to make almost a scapegoat out of him. I mean, it wasn't just him. There was like the Fujitsu. I've
got to be honest. I don't know what you're talking about. I thought the post office scandal was £1 to send a card. Like what? I said, here's a card to send my mum, and they were like, that's £1.20. I was like, are you taking it there yourself? That is the biggest scandal. The price of sending a letter. I'll tell you what's worse, though, Susie. I'll tell you what's worse is if you use one of these dodgy stamps, you then get charged £5 to receive the letter because they don't honour the stamp. So you're not only paying £1. Andrew? Sounds like someone who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's only a fiver fine for using a dodgy stamp. I mean, that's not much more than actually paying for a real stamp.
Well, exactly. I think I'm going to go with that. Thanks, Andrew. I'll pay. Don't send me any letters.
I mean,
it's in the post.
I'm super disorganised, so I always have to send everything first class because I've left it until the day before to send my mother a present. So, and then it normally ends up costing about 20 quid to just send her a birthday card. I spend far more money on the postage than do on the actual card.
This is why Amazon are doing so well, because it's actually cheaper just to send them something from Amazon than to send them an actual card.
Yeah.
No, I do everything on Amazon. Sometimes you can even get it sent the same day if you've forgotten about their birthday.
It's sent from Deliveroo. It's got to be good. But you're right, it's crazy. And people are not using letters anymore anyway. So the whole idea about the scandal and the profits going down, that's the big issue. But you need to delivery somewhere. If you can get that perfect, delivered on time, same-day delivery.
My neighbour delivers my parcels. But basically, the Amazon just leaves them in the lobby.
Yes.
And then we've got a lovely neighbour, and she literally delivers them to everybody by hand. So that's
what a lovely. What's her name?
Ask for a cut or anything. That's just...
No, I think she might be going through having a little feel and then go, I've got your parcels. She leaves a little note in the list. Yeah, she's like, number of the flat. I've got your parcel.
Yeah.
So I think she might be a little Christmas squeeze.
And another big story that's come up recently is Scotland passed the Hate Crime Act, which is this, authoritarian law that criminalises even private speech.
I know, crazy, absolutely crazy. So you can speak in your home about this sort of stuff. And all praise to J.K. Rowling, as in bowling, for coming out and testing it. Because as a lawyer, what you want is certainty. And the police made the absolute crazy thing and say, we're going to investigate every single complaint.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with the rest of it? So, of course, people are going to bring out vendettas and so on and so forth to make that a problem.
Yeah.
But J.K., she went out straight away, well, let me test this. I will name virtually everybody and say a trans woman is still a man and all that sort of stuff on that sort of basis. And she named lots of different people and said, well, come and arrest me.
Yeah.
And they sort of turned around, well, I don't want to do that because you're too popular. And so they turned around, they clarified the law. There's got to be that intention.
Because it's such a vaguely worded law.
Well, it should have been clear from the outset. This is the problem. The reason why it's so dangerous is because it's vague. Everyone's there, what they're saying might be legal, but they don't know if it's legal, so everyone's just going to shut their mouth and say absolutely nothing and live in fear.
I always say it's freedom of speech, which is fundamental, but not freedom from consequences. So if there is genuine hate and you're stirring up hatred, that's a different thing. But everybody must have an opinion and be able to state that opinion.
Yeah, we've already got laws against incitement to violence and things like that. So, I mean, this seemed like an unnecessary law, and nobody understood it. And
they could just enforce the existing law.
8,000, they could enforce the existing law, and 8,000 complaints in its first week, which is completely
I've reported Hamza Yusuf.
It's completely snowed the police under, and most of the complaints are against Hamza Yusuf, the architect.
The thing is that it's not like they're giving the police a load more resources to actually, because they have to investigate every single one of those complaints that comes through. So that's time and resources that could be spent actually fighting real crime.
Actual crime. Imagine that, police actually combating real crime, Susie.
There are probably people going around everywhere stabbing people thinking we can get away with it because they're all busy investigating Hamza Useless.
Hamza useless. I like that.
That's
I think it should be, if everyone just said, come and arrest me for a hate crime, like you should have had a hate crime for reading that auto cue before.
Hey, look at that. Look at the puns.
This is why we owe a debt to J.K. Rowling, because she, I guess she's... if she gets sent down, she could probably buy Scotland and free herself, She could appoint herself Queen of Scotland. She's that rich. But she really put her neck on the line and said, and she didn't just say herself, she didn't just, ostensibly breach or potentially breach the act herself. She said, if any woman out there wants to, state biological reality, I will repeat it. So if they try and take you down, they take me down as well.
It totally was two fingers up and say, look, I'm over here. I'm going to say all of this. Come and test it on that basis. So all credit to J.K. Rowling working on that basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, probably.
Did you like that?
I'm a bully. I'm a horrible bully.
A terrible bully.
Send me to prison. Me and J.K. Rowling will have a great time together there.
Well, coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers in Cursed or Blessed. This week, offering a seat to an older person is age discrimination, and Afghanistan is the new land of the free. And we'll show you what happens when water sports go wrong. Don't worry, this isn't from a dodgy German VHS tape your dad got off a taxi driver. This is safe for TV. See you in a couple of minutes.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Mark White was saying there, Sue, that he thinks it's getting worse, and you were nodding along to that. You've seen this over decades. Situation is sprawling along the coast, more people, and the danger is ramping up.
Definitely, because the numbers and the money it's run like a military operation. I mean, I've been told that by the National Crime Agency, and I don't need to be told it by them to know it. It is meticulous because there's so much money involved. So they're marshalling migrants here, the gangs, they're controlling the gangs, and there will be a kingpin. In some city far away in Erbil, or even in Paris, or in Brussels, who never goes anywhere near the beaches. It's like a Ponzi scheme, really.
Yeah. With that in mind, there's such vested interest, such money, such demand, a never-ending string of demand of people who want to come here.
People are already on their way, remember?
Yeah.
If we stop them now, they're already leaving. There's people leaving the Sudan now are going to reach the only place they want to get to, the French beaches, to get to the UK. They'll arrive in 2.5 years' time.
And so,
you see, they're on their way.
If it's that organised, that lucrative, that desirable, how on earth do we ever break that chain?
It sounds incredibly harsh, but I think if the EU change politically in the June elections, which I think it probably will,
yes,
I think they will put up, as the Greeks have done, holding camps all over Europe, the coasts of Europe, where people are assessed, just to see who is coming in, which would be a plus, as the Greeks have done, because we have no idea who is coming in.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, the RSPCA has lost the plot with a new propaganda advert attacking meat. Should Angela Rayner step down until the end of her police investigation? Plus, we'll be joined live by O.J. Simpson's lawyer. And in my Take at 10, I'll be dealing with the pathetic Harry Potter stars who threw J.K. Rowling under the bus for stating basic biological facts. We're live at 9.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Kirster Blessed coming up, but first I promised I would show you what happened when water sports go wrong. Oh my God, that's a double fail. I really feel for that guy. Like, even have a beer to...
Could have been worse, could have been between his legs.
Cracking ribs, not beers. I'll tell you what, they're working overtime on the pun department in the gallery today, aren't they? I love it. The pun is mightier than the sword. Cracking ribs, not beers. There you go, I love it.
It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. Offering a chair to an older colleague at work could count as age discrimination, an employment judge has ruled. Being given the opportunity to sit while younger staff stand could count as less favourable treatment, a tribunal concluded. Philippe Idrera, a 66-year-old recycling plant operative, sued Severn Waste Water Service in Worcester after his manager, Idris Buemo, asked him if he wanted a chair when he had not asked for one. The hearing was told Mr. Idrera replied he did not want one. Mr. Buemo did not give a reason for the offer, though there was nothing unpleasant or rude about the way in which he asked the question. I mean, this seems ridiculous. He's 66. His colleagues were worried about his health. I mean, would you be offended if somebody offered you a chair?
No, absolutely not. I'd be very grateful. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. It seems like you can be sued for absolutely anything. You'll be sued for, probably be sued for breathing on someone at this rate. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is the sort of Equality Act that's supposed to be there to make sure people are treated well. But in this case, Andrew, it seems to be that it's actually getting rid of chivalry and getting rid of manners.
There are nuances to this story which are slightly missed in the sort of headlines. What I love is this person's called a recycling
We don't
plan.
want nuance. We don't want nuance in this show. I've already formed an opinion off the first 3 words.
But we missed the recycling plan operative. What the hell is that? It's like somebody in charge of a dishwasher as an aquatic engineer. I mean, it's nonsense. What the story, however, is they sort of turn around and say he was 66. They normally push them out of work when they're 66.
Well, he was worried. He was worried that they had this plan to get rid of him because he's 66. He had this idea that, 66 was the age at which they tried to get people out the door.
Yes, exactly. 3 chairs, hip, hip. So you're working on that sort of basis. What I loved about it, they said the fact that he was offered a chair was that discriminatory because nobody else was offered a chair. And he was moved from recycling paper to recycling plastic, which is why he might have needed a chair for a bit longer. It's all a really rather weird story. But I think the principle is the headline. If you're offering her a chair, it's gone out of society. We were discussing it earlier. You need to offer chairs to people. You need to be able to open doors to people. It's about politeness. I was brought up that way, weren't you?
Offering people a seat on the tube. I mean, imagine being convicted after offering somebody a seat on the tube or opening a door for a woman.
I know. Well, I always tell people they should stand up and offer people the seat on a tube.
Yeah.
I don't do it, but I
you
tell
just
other people
point at other people on the tube and say, you should stand up.
Yeah, you should offer that woman a seat. And also, this is the thing, is you know, everyone, you don't know what, like, I need to sit down a lot.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm lazy. So it's important.
So do you want laziness to be now classed as a sort of medical condition that means that you should wear a badge that says I'm lazy? That's a great idea.
Have you seen that in the X Factor when she goes, "What do you do for a living?" She went, "Well, I don't do nothing because I'm lazy." Like, that literally is... You know, I think that's an option. I am lazy.
You could even have a category at the Paralympics for lazy people who have to stop halfway through the marathon.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that.
This is what we need. This is the Lazy Olympics.
Sounds pretty woke to me. You have all these feminists who get all angry if, like, a man offers to just carry their bag for them.
I don't. I'm a feminist. Carry my bag.
It's really dangerous. But
are you suggesting that I can't carry my own bag?
Yeah. Well, I have heard that some women don't like it when a man opens a door for the woman because they think the man is using it as a reason to have a look at the woman's posterior.
Is that why you do it?
I can possibly see.
But it's so wrong, isn't it? And I think in today's society, it's all about starting to say from the media, we can turn around. It's great to offer a seat to people who might need it. It's great to open a door, to be polite. It's good to sort of ask people how they are, to speak. We should get back to those days and stop this woke nonsense.
Chivalry needs to come back.
Absolutely.
Moving on, Joe Wicks has sparked controversy by linking ADHD to ultra-processed foods, prompting a backlash from one of the UK's top ADHD charities. Joe blames ultra-processed junk for the explosion of children, not literal explosion of children, with ADHD, as he reveals he ran on sugar as a kid and thinks that his love of sugary snacks such as Sunny Delight, Wagon Wheels and jam sandwiches, that was my packed lunch today, caused his behavioural issues. The charity ADHD UK has issued a statement slamming Wicks for his comments. And I wonder how long it took them to compose that email. I would like to condemn... Oh, a squirrel. I mean, Susie, there does seem to be an issue now with... there's been a huge increase in the number of people being diagnosed with ADHD and things like that. I know many of my friends have been diagnosed. They mainly did it because during lockdown they were bored, had too much time to sit around thinking and overanalyzing themselves, or because if you get diagnosed with ADHD, you get what's essentially prescription grade speed off the NHS.
Legally.
Yeah, legally, from a doctor.
I mean, come on. And we were just talking about comedians who will remain nameless that are, you know, all got ADHD because they've got legalised drugs, but they're not funny.
Yeah. Well,
we should put them on a diet of wagon wheels. I think this is that's the recipe for things. But he's right, though. Actually, what you put into your body is reflecting what you put out. So there's an honest answer about that.
So you agree with Joe Wicks here?
Absolutely. It might not be controversial. But I hate labels. The fact that you've got to slap a label on something. Right. It's a useful diagnosis if you're going to help get a cure or treat people or offer them a chair. You can work on that sort of basis. But there are problems. If you put a lot of sugar into your body, it's not good for you.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, ADHD is about having an attention span problem, and there are various different things that go into that. So, for example, kids sitting on TikTok all day is destroying their attention span. That leads to more ADHD diagnoses. Filling yourself with sugar that gives you energy for a minute and then makes you crash, and then you can't do any of your work because you're all lazy. Yeah. Then that's going to lead to an ADHD diagnosis. There are a load of different factors that go into it, but he's oversimplified it by just saying it's just the food.
It's not the only cause. And what I also love is his trip down memory lane. Your Sunny Delights. I don't know if you still do those. The wagon wheels used to be enormous when I was a boy.
Yeah. That was an actual wagon.
It's shrinkflation.
How small were you as a child?
Because you had little hands.
I probably had little hands.
And curly whirlies as well.
Oh, yes, don't talk about that.
You could use a curly whirly as a ladder to paint the house.
Wasn't that lovely? And walnut whips, I used to like those.
Yeah,
do you remember the Milky Bars are on me? Do they still have this stuff?
They still have a lot of that stuff.
Nostalgia's not what it used to be.
I should probably point out that ADHD UK have said that Joe Wicks is wrong wrong about this idea of sugar causing ADHD. And they should know, because they're ADHD UK. They probably know about ADHD.
But sugar is actually a stimulant as well.
It is a stimulant.
So wouldn't that help people with ADHD?
And some doctors have said that sugar is almost like a drug, because there's in the wild there's not many opportunities to actually get sugar.
Wagon wheels.
You know, you get there's not many wagon wheels
in the wild.
There's no wagon wheels in the wild. There's no curly whirlies. You sometimes get some bees nests.
Curly whirl is a great name. I love it.
You know, then you've got to eat some wax and get stung by some bees as well. So it's not quite the same as just having a Mars bar. But anyway, my attention span.
Or a marathon or a Snickers. That's the argument, isn't it?
Snickers or marathons? Absolutely.
It's got to be a marathon. I get out of breath just eating one. Anyway, my attention span has reached its limit for that topic. Let's move on to the next one. British Muslim clerics who embarked on a so-called fact-finding mission to Afghanistan have praised the beautiful Taliban leaders for instilling freedom in the country. The imams travelled to Afghanistan last summer as part of a trip organised by Prosper Afghanistan, a UK-based NGO that seeks to support rebuilding initiatives and the human aid and advocacy group. Speaking at Queen Mary University of London, one of the delegates, Sheikh Haitham al-Haddad, defended the Taliban's harsh restrictions on women, claiming that Western criticism is nothing more than propaganda designed to demonise the Islamists. He said Western secular influences were being driven into the minds of the students who were speaking against the Sharia, and many vices were creeping in. When it is time to rebuild the country, we cannot tolerate division, and therefore temporary suspension of liberal secular education took place. The restrictions that he's praising are that girls over the age of 12 have been excluded from education, beauty salons have been banned, women are barred from many workplaces as well as barred from public spaces and gyms, and women can't travel without a male guardian. Progressive. I mean, Andrew, will you be holidaying in Afghanistan?
I've already booked my trip.
It sounds like a man's country.
Well, it does, doesn't it? Well, what they were talking about, the other side of it, they were actually talking about security and say it's one of the most peaceful times there at the moment.
I mean,
but you're absolutely right.
But that has to be seen in context
It totally has to be seen
not being very peaceful for a long time.
And it was the second anniversary of when the handover to the Taliban and stuff like that. But you're right. Security on one hand, getting rid of women's rights on the other is not a good balance. And we still need to shine a spotlight on that. I think it's scandalous for a certain point of views. We need to encourage education around the world.
Well, do you think I should ask the women on the panel what they think?
I open the door for them to walk out. Just to be polite. What are you talking about? But I'll offer them a seat.
Women aren't allowed to speak, obviously, of course. Yeah, sounds like freedom to me, of course. The very typical cop-out to get out of an argument is, oh, it's just fake news, it's just the Western media making up this rubbish. Like, you have these idiots saying, oh, October 7th, it didn't really happen, it's just fake news in the press. It's just absolutely bonkers. And these Afghans are now, it looks like, the most prominent group coming across on the small boats. And Afghanistan, since we've changed things with the Albanians, Afghans now look like, with the latest data we have, the most prominent group. And then
so these values are going to be coming to the UK.
So if you go to the Women's Peace and Security Index, Afghanistan, guess where they rank in the world out of 177 countries included?
I don't know.
177 out of 177 for their treatment of women. So, yeah, it sounds like freedom to me, and sounds like a beautiful Afghanistan, as they've called it.
And we've got the 8 clerics on screen there. There they are.
In the studio? Are they coming out?
And here
they are now. Please welcome.
Do you reckon they'd come in?
Do you think this is Talibananas?
But I like one of their policies I want.
What's that policy?
And that last policy that we should all have a male chaperone, because in London, that's violence. I want a male chaperone everywhere I go. I love that one, Taliban. You can bring that one here.
Well, maybe we'll get it here. Who knows? Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, the RSPCA asked for a bit of RESPECT. That's respect. I love that from the song. Plus, I'll show you what happened when a man tries a really big jump.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a bit of a drier day for most of us, but there has been a few showers around. Low pressure never too far away out towards the north of the UK, but higher pressure down towards the south and the west does bring something briefly more settled. There have been those showers around and they will continue through much of Saturday evening, pushing in from the west across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we could even see some snow continuing across the high ground here. Elsewhere though, generally turning much drier through the evening, with those clear skies allowing temperatures to drop into the single figures, around 7 or 8 degrees across the south, but even lower further north, perhaps some frost in places. So a chilly start across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, but those showers quickly pushing in from the west again as we go through Sunday morning and into the afternoon. Further south, after a bit of a drier start to the morning, there will be some sunshine through the first part of the day, but some cloud bubbling up as well, and we could see the odd 1 or 2 showers across Wales and into Northern England. Less warm than we saw on Saturday, highs of 14 or 15 in the south and a little bit closer to average further north. Monday starts a widely showery day across the UK. Bands of showers push their way south and eastwards through Monday morning, and then there will be some breaks and some sunnier spells between those showers, but they could be particularly heavy in the north, and a brisk northwesterly wind will make it feel cooler. Showers continue through the first part of next week with temperatures below average, but turning a little milder through the second half of the week.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Tickle versus Giggle is coming up. That's the boxing match you don't want to miss. But first, I promised I would show you what happened when a man tried a really big jump. My God, he's disappeared into the ground.
I love the fact that Leo Kershaw is now sponsored by personal injury lawyers. Every single, there's a pattern every week in this, isn't there?
That looked more than personal injury lawyers. That was, I mean, he's obviously set it up so he can go, you know, like you get these, what are they called, free runners?
Yes.
The parkour.
Yes.
He's jumped into a hardcore parkour. He's jumped into a hole there.
He's disappeared into one of those tunnels that were discovered under New York.
Yeah, or maybe a Hamas tunnel. But yeah, it didn't look nice at all.
Why? Is it just men that do these things?
Yes.
It is, isn't it? 'Cause I never see girls do this. It's a manly thing
to do.
I always wondered why the sort of average age, life expectancy of men is always a bit lower than women.
It's the Darwin Awards, isn't it?
Yeah, because like 1 in 100 men just launches himself into a manhole like that. That is why we don't make it as long as women. Anyway, let's have a look at some of these topics. The new RSPCA advert has faced backlash after being accused of being out of touch. Let's have a look and see what you think.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it.
All I'm asking,
just a little bit, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I ain't gonna do you wrong while you're gone.
I ain't gonna do you wrong.
'Cause I don't wanna.
All I'm asking.
Oh
So the charity's new campaign is part of a rebrand, the first rebrand they've had since the 1970s. Yes. And to do this, they hired creative agency JKR, no relation to J.K. Rowling, to help inspire everyone to create a better world for every animal. And they also hired advertising agency AMV BBDO, who have too many letters in the name. But it's not gone down very well. The charity have come under fire from farmers who feel that they're being labelled as villains who abuse animals. And some gardeners are angry too at being scolded for lawn mowing bees, if lawn mowing is a word, and stepping on snails. And some donors are furious. One said to the Daily Mail, "I won't give them money again. I am totally furious about the lack of respect they've shown for farmers and gardeners. Our money has been used to pay for this bonkers and wildly woke rebrand. It's an insult." And Gareth Wynne-Jones, a Welsh hill farmer, said the video was a kick in the teeth. Well, I suppose as long as it's not a sheep's teeth, Gareth. Now, Chloe, you seem like an animal lover. What do you make of this?
I mean, I don't think it as bad as you've maybe painted it to be. I think it's the stuff where they bring in the insects where I think it gets a bit ridiculous, where
so the
swatting the spiders.
You're fine with insect abuse?
Well, I mean, we could get into a deep philosophical argument, but most of the consensus is that insects are not sentient, but then, say, animals...
What, you thought that spider in that
spider's very intelligent.
I know.
It could sing.
It's got talent.
OK, maybe that one. But on the whole, I think that it's fine to point out the ridiculousness of people thinking that a dog is on a way higher pedestal than a cow just because of our culture. Like, we had this whole hoo-ha where people said they were going to boycott the Olympics when they were going to put a dog on the menu, but it's just, like, a different culture.
Right.
So I think pointing out that is fine, but going as far as to say stepping on snails is evil, swatting a spider is evil, I think that's where it got a bit ridiculous.
Susie, I mean, Chloe makes some good points, but dogs are made out of pet. Cows are made out of meat.
No, what it is, I think we've all misunderstood this advert. I think if you find an animal that can sing Aretha Franklin, you're not allowed to kill it.
You can have a bit of R.E.S.
You're not allowed to kill any animal that can sing.
I loved the advert. I have to tell you, I grew up loving the RSPCA.
Yeah.
My mother used to rescue all sorts of stray dogs and other bits and pieces. And fantastic, we had a big farm, we had 18 horses and lots of dogs and cats and things like that.
Oh, my God, you're rich.
No, I mean, I'm far too rich. The reality, however, is they went a bit too far with the lobster, because I do love lobster.
Right.
And I think, and the snail, which you missed at the very end of the video, do check it out online. They've got this little singing snail. I do think that's a little bit too far.
Yeah.
The work they do is great. The RSPCA last year as well got into trouble in October because they were saying that the money from the lottery, about 74% of the money raised, went on admin and expenses.
Oh, right.
As opposed to the hard-hitting stuff about protecting animals.
Yeah.
Animals, you should, I'm with Ricky Gervais on this, you should not be cruel to animals. The way that people are cruel to animals is abhorrent.
And what do you think
call it out.
What do you think of Chloe's anti-insect
Well, I think
rhetoric?
it's disgusting. The door that we're going to open now, what is this? What sort of panel have you brought us this week, Leo? No, I think but there are religions as well that say that you should not turn around and hurt any of God's creatures.
I believe Jaina Buddhists, they sweep the floor, the ground in front of them to make sure they don't stand on
we will come back
beetles.
as cockroaches.
OK, well, that's probably a step up for me. Anyway, let's move on to Tickle versus Giggle. This is an app intended to provide an online refuge for women. Is being sued by a transgender woman in Australia. Roxanne Tickle is suing the female-only social media platform Giggle for Girls after being blocked from using the app because the firm's CEO said that Roxanne was a man. Federal Court Justice Robert Bromwich heard Tickle has lived as a woman since 2017, has a birth certificate stating that her gender is female, had gender affirmation surgery, and feels in her mind that psychologically she's a woman. However, Roxanne looks like a roadie for Def Leppard. This case is the first time alleged gender identity discrimination has been heard by the federal court in Sydney, and it goes right to the heart of the seemingly unresolvable conflict between biological sex and gender identity. So preserving the rights of women for their own spaces or allowing in women like me. So this could really set a precedent. I mean, I better ask the women what they think of this first. I mean, Susie, do you think this goes to the heart of a lot of things that we've seen? Transgender access to female sports, changing rooms, other safe spaces, and now this online refuge.
Do you know what? I know that it's like really a subject that makes people go, oh, be careful to talk about it. But we never talk about trans men wanting to get into male spaces. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, because men are fine with that, because we're...
I'm not going to win the men's running race, let's be honest.
This is it. And the thing is if you really, really feel like a woman...
I do.
Right. Then respect what women suffer. So for, you know what I mean, to understand that when women say, I've got to leave the studio late at night on my own, right, that's a real... I can't turn into Leo. I have to... I embody that. I don't feel it. I am it. And I totally get why trans people feel at risk, but honour the fact that women, we are at risk. We've just had Afghanistan. It's not very comedy, but, you know... It's a different world.
It is so important to call it out, because actually it is respect for everybody in the conversation. And in the same way as you have sports which are designed on physicality to start with, and you have to have safe spaces for biological women, people who are women, you need to make sure that everybody feels safe in the conversation. So whilst you absolutely respect people's right to do whatever they want to their own bodies, to identify as however they want, as soon as it impacts somebody else, then you need to have everybody's voice heard in that conversation. This was an online refuge for women.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's particular need and particular concern and safety issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I saw, just on a slightly different note, that I thought was ridiculous, is Riley Gaines, who I'm sure you know, the swimmer who had to compete against...
So she's a female swimmer.
Female swimmer who had to compete against Leah Thomas. But she said on the Joe Rogan podcast the other day something that we hadn't heard before, which was that at the same competition, not only did you have Leah Thomas, a guy with clearly a bulge in a women's swimming competition, you also had a biological female there, now transitioning to a man, who was competing in a pair of Speedos and nothing covering her top half. She hasn't had any surgery there, just on full display at the National Championship.
Can you send me the pictures later? that sounds great. Yeah, this is just making sport much more interesting as far as I can see. Moving on, Rishi Sunak has been blasted for destroying the reputation of Adidas Samba trainers. Let's have a look at the state of him. There he is.
There he is.
Oh, see, what ruins this? What ruins this is the fact that he's wearing, like, a suit. He's wearing suit trousers and a tucked-in shirt with trainers. You can't do that unless you're commuting and you're jogging to the office.
I think that's right. You can see. Yes, I've got some nice shoes on.
You do.
Thank you. What I love about it is that he went on LBC and he was quite funny. Actually, he was quite funny about it. He was talking to Nick Ferrari and he sort of turned around and said, "Yes, I've completely ruined your mate's street cred." And probably all the people who would normally wear those trainers are going to say, "Well, Rishi wears them. I'm not going to." It's like reverse endorsement from a celebrity.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we've got the Prime Minister's fulsome apology to Adidas Samba fans. Let's have a look.
Well, first of all, I was issuing fulsome apology to the Samba community. But in my defence, I would say I have been wearing Adidas trainers and Sambas and others, in fact, for many, many years.
I mean, I guess...
Politicians, they apologise too much lately.
But that was a joke. That was a joke.
It's a funny joke. I think there's a little bit of truth in it.
Yes.
Their apologies doesn't mean anything anymore.
And do you think it's impossible for a politician to be... Like, if I don't know, Jay-Z or somebody was wearing the trainers, everybody would think, oh, that's great for the trainers.
£20,000 a left.
Do you think a politician could ever be cool? I guess Obama was
Obama was very cool. He was still cool.
Javier Milei?
Javier Milei, the guy who get ahead, get some hair.
See, he could get away with the trainers, but Rishi couldn't. He keeps on trying
Tony
to be
Blair,
cool.
when he first went in, he was the rock star. People forget. People go from loving somebody to really hating them. When he went in, he was a rock star. There was a similar guy in Japan who was Prime Minister who didn't look very traditional in the suits and everything, but he had this long flowing locks and things like that. That's the way to do it. You became a popular Prime Minister.
But it doesn't always work. I mean, William Hague tried to wear a baseball cap. And, it just looked like there's something wrong with them.
I think that people, they put prime ministers into two different boxes. You've got the nerds and then you've got, like, the jocks like Boris Johnson. Someone actually made a spreadsheet and noted that there's a trend that we always alternate between the nerds and the cool guys. It always switches. It's gone on for years with very few exceptions. But I think what Rishi...
By your analysis, that would mean that Keir Starmer is going to be a really cool prime minister.
Maybe he'll be the one to break the trend. But Rishi...
He's going to come out dressed like the Fonz and be like...
I mean, Rishi needs to just accept that he is a nerd and people see him as a nerd and people just want him to just get on with the job that he has rather than trying to do all these stunts where he looks cool. I think what happened here is he said to his guys, like, what can I do to look more down with the kids, to look more real and working class? And they're like, you know what, take your tie off and put the trainers on and it will look really cool. And it hasn't gone down well. Now he's trying to spin it off.
He already wears Prada is what he does on his feet and works on it.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Prada?
Prada. He wears these Prada
exactly. Because I mean, you see, when you see somebody like Putin wearing a $3,000 jacket,
yes,
it just highlights the fact, or Kim Jong-un or someone, it just highlights the fact that they're in such an elevated position when everybody else in the country is starving.
I know, but I lost my train of thought. I was so listening to you talking about he wears Prada on his feet. How do you know this stuff?
I know this stuff. I do my research. It's lovely. But I'll tell you what I love about it as well. And I love your theory that people go from somebody really extravagant, first of all, to somebody a bit staid. It's like John Major came in after Maggie Thatcher. Boris Johnson, when he started, he was the Carlsberg of prime ministers because he could reach part of the electorate that nobody else could. Yeah. He then turned into this Marmite character. So watching the whole media roller coaster of emotion is brilliant. So I like that. We could work on that basis because we could then mould an appropriate politician to fit that mould.
Yeah, yeah. Well, fun enough, viewer of the show, Paul, sent in a joke about Marmite and the Scottish Hate Crime Act.
Oh, yes,
he said, in Scotland, you're just it's like Marmite. You love it. Because you're not allowed to hate it. Anyway, I thought it was funny. No, he delivers it better. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, a Gary Barlow scammer tried to relight someone's fire and take that money she had in her bank account. Plus, I'll show you what happened when a guy was rudely awakened by his mate.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Offline and overlooked. That's what Age UK say millions of British pensioners are. Why? Because they cannot or won't access the internet. It's leading to digital exclusion. So the charities campaigning for public services like banks, utilities and even the NHS to maintain a more human approach.
Everything's online. People assume you've got a smartphone with a mobile number and an email, and without that you don't exist in this world anymore. We've got to try and get the government to see that it's so important to make people feel that they belong, because there's a feeling that the older generation just feel that they're forgotten, they're in the way. And we already know that anyway, but it's just another reason for them to feel that they're not wanted. They'll just accept it and they'll say, well, that's it, I can't do it anymore. And that's it, whereas other people would be really kicking and screaming. So we need to be the voice for older people.
Despite digital technology playing an increasing role in our lives, around 1 in 5 over 65s in the UK don't use the internet. Thornycroft Centre in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, provides a space for this age group to socialise and get help to go online.
I'm not that good with mobiles, so when you mention anything about online, I ain't a clue what you're talking about.
The closure of thousands of banks is also detrimental to the older generation.
A lot of our members what come, they tend to use cash. They don't like to use bank cards. I think a lot of it's trust or the lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works. I think they're very vulnerable as well with online. It's really important that they're aware how to use it and how to use it safely.
So, in an online era, it's still crucial for many to have an offline option.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Gary Barlow's in the news again, and not for tax reasons this time. But first, I promised I would show you what happened when a group of lads woke up their friend.
Oh, glorious.
A bit of friendly fire there. Do you remember the happy slapping era, Susie?
I do. I remember the Tango Man started that.
It was Tango Man, wasn't it? I remember, absolutely glorious.
Bursting people's eardrums.
That would be a hate crime now.
Well, absolutely.
Wait, sorry, that was a trend?
That was, so in the, I think it was the 90s, there was a trend for, there was an advert for Tango where somebody went up and slapped somebody in the...
You've been
it wasn't a trend to just go around in public and start bursting.
There was that as well. The 90s were a very violent time, much like 2024. Anyway, moving on. A woman has been catfished by a 24-year-old Nigerian man pretending to be Gary Barlow. I've got to read some of this out because it is great. So Janet Smith believed, she's 62, she believed she was talking to the Take That singer for about a week after she added him as a friend on Facebook. The fake Gary bombarded her with compliments and messages and said he had split up. I'm assuming from his wife, not from the band. But she grew suspicious. I mean, well, she's good.
She's very good.
Got a Poirot here, you know what I mean? She should be doing the post office inquiry. And eventually convinced the scammer to reveal his true identity. The cheat said that he was actually a 24-year-old man from Nigeria and was sorry for lying to her, but told Janet he really did love her and asked for cash. She said he was kind, he was nice, he was really lovely, saying, "Good morning, good evening, I've seen your videos because I love to dance." The words were really posh. "I'm in a meeting now and I'm practicing for a concert." I mean, those are pretty posh words, to be fair. And Janet said, elderly people, she warned elderly people, because they're going to be adding these celebrities, they're going to be conning these old people. I understand that they're poor and they have to get money for their family, but people might lose a lot of money over this. And it's also giving celebrities a bad name.
Yeah, she's fallen prey, and all the Gary Barlow gags, as you said, from Take That to other bits and pieces. The scandal is this: about £88 million last year in the UK was spent on romance fraud.
I thought you were going to say it was spent on fake Gary Barlow.
And Prada trousers. No, but you're working on that sort of basis. So it's a terrible, terrible industry. Catfishing is what it's called, where you basically pretend to be somebody online. Lots of people are very vulnerable, and as a result of it, they do that. Lloyds Bank worked out that it was about 13 grand is lost for elderly people.
That's the average. Oh my God, that's terrible. I mean, Susie, you'd be perfectly placed to do a catfish because you are the world's leading Marilyn Monroe impersonator.
I'm sitting here thinking, number one, why would she need to give Gary Barlow money? That's the first warning. I need money from you. You're Gary Barlow. You've got so much money, you're trying not to pay tax, right? But this is here, I'm thinking this is quite a good idea because, you know, these sound like my text messages. Good morning, good evening, can I have some money? And I look, I'm already doing this.
but it's a scandal. So what happened, and I was looking at the figures for this, so Lloyds Bank, who we spoke to about this, they say on average a victim is about 7 grand. Right. It's also youngsters as well. Some of them were as young as 10 years old.
I'm amazed they know who Gary Barlow is.
Oh, no, but it wasn't just Gary Barlow, but it works on that sort of basis. But it's people looking for romance online. And it's made worse now because of my pet subject about AI.
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence means
that you can fake voices.
You can fake voices. You can have basically people will look as though you're really speaking to Leo when you're not, and you're working on that sort of basis. So now it's going to massively increase, but it was 88 million last year in the UK. It's a horrendous industry. And people, if it's too good to be true, it isn't true. So we should absolutely warn people about it. And I felt sorry for the woman when I saw this story.
So if Gary Barlow messages you, just, you know, do some checks before you believe it's Gary Barlow.
If I message you, though, send me...
I will do.
The Royal Navy recruits no longer need to prove that they can swim in our next story. Anyone seeking to join the senior service won't have to pass a 30-minute swim test prior to signing up, but they will get swimming lessons on the job. This comes as the military are in the midst of a recruitment crisis. A source has said that it's a sign of true desperation as standards are cut to bring in more recruits. I mean, this is a bit worrying, isn't it? Britain used to rule the waves and now we can't produce enough seamen, so to speak. Andrew?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right here. And I love what you said beforehand is now the Russians don't need to shoot it, they're just pushing it into the water. What I love about it is firemen don't need to be, they can be scared of heights and they can do that. You can have a doctor who can pass out when they're a surgeon. All of that sort of stuff is... The reality is this. It used to be that you have to take a 30-minute test to prove that you can swim before you get in. Now what they're saying is we need the recruits. We will still train you. If you fail that 30-minute test, you would still basically be trained on the job. They're now turning around and saying, you don't do it in your own time, do it on our time and we'll pay you for doing it.
So what they're basically saying is if you can't swim, the taxpayer is going to pay for you to learn how to swim to whatever the Navy level is.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we just take people who know how to swim anyway and save the taxpayers' money?
The problem is, Susie, that we don't have enough. We've got a real crisis in military recruitment because, I mean, patriotism and things like that have been seen as basically illegal.
Although, if you do see online, there was that guy that teaches people to swim by just throwing them in the water.
Right.
And that is actually a proven way.
That's what my dad did to me.
So do you think this could be? How old were you when he did that to you?
No. We actually had these swimsuits that looked like bomber vests, to be honest, as well. Right. Where rather than having armbands, you've got a bathing suit that's got polystyrene blocks going all the way around you that looks like bombs, and you gradually take them out as you get better at swimming.
Oh, as you become more buoyant.
Yeah. But it looks really dodgy, as well as making you you look obese.
Right. I mean, I kind of want to wear one of those, not to swim, just for fun.
It sounds a lot of fun, doesn't it?
I'm naturally built for buoyancy.
Hey. Henry VIII was as well.
Girls always float.
Started.
Right, well, up next is Mark Dolan tonight. What have you got for us this evening, Mark?
Leo, what a brilliant show. Great to have you back. Listen, we've got O.J. Simpson's lawyer live on the show. Ooh. Did O.J. Simpson kill his girlfriend? Also tonight, we're going to be talking about the RSPCA who have gone woke and made people feel bad for eating meat. They're anti-farming, anti-human, in my opinion. Plus, I'm delighted to say that in the big story, we'll be debating Angela Rayner. That is the scandal that won't go away.
That sounds amazing, and what a coup having one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers. Wow. And he was fully exonerated in court, by the way, just like Michael Jackson. Anyway, thanks to my brilliant panel tonight, Susie Kennedy, Chloe Dobbs and Andrew Eborn. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
And don't forget headline.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's been a bit of a drier day for most of us, but there has been a few showers around. Low pressure never too far away out towards the north of the UK, but higher pressure down towards the south and the west does bring something briefly more settled. There have been those showers around and they will continue through much of Saturday evening, pushing in from the west across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we could even see some snow continuing across the high ground here. Elsewhere though, generally turning much drier through the evening, with those clear skies allowing temperatures to drop into the single figures, around 7 or 8 degrees across the south, but even lower further north, perhaps some frost in places. So a chilly start across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, but those showers quickly pushing in from the west again as we go through Sunday morning and into the afternoon. Further south, after a bit of a drier start to the morning, there will be some sunshine through the first part of the day, but some cloud bubbling up as well, and we could see the odd 1 or 2 showers across Wales and into Northern England. Less warm than we saw on Saturday, highs of 14 or 15 in the south and a little bit closer to average further north. Monday starts a widely showery day across the UK. Bands of showers push their way south and eastwards through Monday morning, and then there will be some breaks and some sunnier spells between those showers, but they could be particularly heavy in the north, and a brisk northwesterly wind will make it feel cooler. Showers continue through the first part of next week with temperatures below average, but turning a little milder through the second half of the week.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Variety Cruises have been sailing since 1942, and thanks to them, you could set sail in 2025. You have the chance to win a 7-night small boat cruise for 2 worth £10,000. With your flights, meals, drinks and excursions included, you can choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. You'll also win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash that you can use to make this summer spectacular. We'll also treat you to these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the